Jessie Bardwell, precious daughter, beloved sister, gone. The story of what happened to this beautiful 27-year-old would drive a grieving family through every dark emotion, fear, sorrow, and rage.
I get very, very angry. I bust out of my skin angry.
I have a lot of regrets, but I have something that haunts me every minute of every day, and it will not go away.
Since Gary Bardwell first laid eyes on his little Jessie, this dad and daughter were inseparable.
You and Jessie were close. She was Daddy's little girl.
She was. From the time she was born, I still have a back ache from Jessie wanting me to hold her. You know, she would jump up when she was 6 years old and want me to carry her.
It's a bond that stays strong as Jessie grows to be a beautiful, silly, and very independent young woman.
She was so beautiful, inside and out. She honestly was a special person.
Jessie and her brother Brandon are just as close, like peas in a pod.
She always had my back, and I always had her back. She would worry about me like my mom or dad would.
But this young lady with a passion for life also has a maverick streak.
She was adventurous. She was very independent. I think part of that got to her in the end, being independent and so trusting.
At first, the free-spirited Jessie does everything to put her dad at ease.
She would call me before she went to sleep or text me, "Dad, I'm okay."
But as Jessie moves out on her own, makes new friends and boyfriends, those apron strings finally get cut.
This was all a shock.
It was a huge shock.
Jessie catches her dad off guard, dropping everything and moving from her hometown of Pascagoula, Mississippi to Richardson, Texas, 500 miles away.
And that kind of scared me. For her to just do that and leave with nothing was totally out of the ordinary.
That wasn't like your baby sister.
No, not at all.
Jessie's dad and brother soon learn it's all over the love of a new boyfriend, a fast-talking young man named Jason Lowe. And Gary doesn't trust this kid on sight.
So you met him after your daughter had already moved and been living with him for 4 months?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think of Jason?
I thought he was just a piece of work. He was just full of crap.
Jason tries to impress Gary with tales of an adventurous life, including a stint as a Navy SEAL.
And it was a lie.
And I just rolled my eyes. I said, there's no way this guy's ever even thought about being a Navy SEAL.
And Dad's sinking feeling only grows stronger when Jessie's daily texts and phone calls from Texas slow to a trickle.
When she moved to Texas, everything stopped.
But when Gary pays a visit to the couple's luxury apartment, Jessie claims to be happy.
I said, Jessie, something is seriously wrong with this guy. You're going home with me. You're not staying here. And I'll never forget this, ever. She said, Daddy, there's nothing you can say or do to make me go home with you. I'm staying with Jason.
Do you think he forcibly took her or mind control?
Mind control.
That mind control continues with Gary's every attempt to reach Jessie. Calls where it's Jason who picks up the phone.
I said, let me speak to her. Why are you answering her phone? Well, she's really upset right now, and she really misses you, and she's really upset.
But Gary isn't buying it for a minute. It's the dad's intuition, and it keeps him up at night.
I had a dream that Jessie was killed.
You had a nightmare.
I honestly had a nightmare that Jessie was no longer on this earth. That's the thing that haunts me every day. And my gut told me to go out there because something was wrong. And I would call and say, Jessie, I'm leaving in the morning to come out there. Oh, Daddy, please don't come out here. Everything is fine.
Then, after the holidays in 2015, everything is very far from fine. Jessie is pulling farther and farther away from her family. There's almost no contact.
Something changed after that Christmas 2015 because she wouldn't answer my calls. I suspect something's wrong. We decided If she didn't call on Mother's Day, something bad had happened.
Gary's worst nightmares seem to come true. Mother's Day comes and goes with no contact from Jessie.
I was freaking out.
And when it's Jason once again answering Jessie's phone, Gary's concern explodes into anger.
Let me know, let me know what's going on. Or I'm going to come out there and there's going to be trouble. Jason said, you better not come out here with an attitude.
If that's a threat, it won't keep Gary away from his daughter.
We'd finally had enough.
Gary loads up his truck and drives 11 hours straight to the city of Richardson, Texas. But what he finds finally drives this devoted dad into utter panic and terror.
I said, Jason, I do not want to talk to you. Where is she? He would just scream, I don't know where she is.
What was your dad since telling you?
I'll never see Jessie alive again.
The vivacious Jessie Bardwell has gone radio silent. From 500 miles away in Mississippi, her dad, Gary Bardwell, is angry and terrified. He can't reach his daughter by phone.
I honestly thought that I would get a phone call again and said, Daddy, you're right, and I'm coming home.
But that never happened.
The only person Gary can reach is Jessie's boyfriend, Jason Lowe. And if Jason knows where Jessie is, he's not talking, taunting Gary with silence.
Basically, what you gonna do about it?
But Daddy's not backing down.
I said, well, I'll see you tomorrow.
You let him know Daddy was on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And during a desperate 11-hour drive from Mississippi to Texas, Gary's fury grows.
I actually feel like I should have killed him when I first met him.
Gary hasn't heard from Jessie in weeks. He's at the end of his rope. When he finally reaches Richardson, Texas, this distraught dad doesn't even try to talk to Jason again.
Went straight to Richardson Police Department, filed a missing persons report, and they got busy.
Officers go straight to Jason's place with audio recorders rolling.
I want to have ask you some more questions about Jessie. You mind if I come in and talk to you?
But Jason tells cops just what he's been telling Jessie's dad. He has no idea where Jessie is.
It's like just sit here and wait and think every sound is her. Like coming back or something like it. I don't, it's like surreal almost.
Jason goes on to tell the cops the last time he saw Jessie, she was driving away in her Acura on Mother's Day morning.
So it is drivable and she's driving it, though, right?
Right, yeah.
There's just one problem with that. Jessie no longer owned that car.
We contacted the people that were driving the vehicle, and they said they had purchased it from Jessie and from Jason approximately a month prior to that.
The lies are getting to be too much for Jessie's father. Gary pays a visit to his daughter's boyfriend, his hand just within reach of justice.
I told my wife to take my gun and hide it from me. So I went up to their apartment and knocked on the door. He wouldn't come to the door. I could hear footsteps, but he wouldn't come to the door.
He was inside.
Yeah. So I went straight back down, called Richardson Police Department. I said, I know you told us not to come and try to see Jason Lowe. I said, would you please send a unit over here, because I want you to know I'm not trying to start any trouble. And they did, and they got there pretty quick.
This is the cops' second visit to Jason's apartment in 2 days. Again, audio recorders are rolling as officers catch him off guard. They discover the fast-talking young man is into drugs.
I heard you're trying to help us in every way that you can.
Yes, sir.
All right. You got Coke on the countertop? A line of it?
Sir?
You have Coke on the countertop? A line of it, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now police want to search the rest of the apartment, but Jason is hesitant and he desperately tries to keep them out of the garage.
Do you have a garage space?
Right, but that's like a common area? I do.
Okay, can you show that to me?
In the garage downstairs, they find Jason's truck covered in mud. Its front end smashed and stuffed into the trunk. Scattered through the garage are bottles of air freshener and something else.
When your detectives searched the garage, what hit you when they walked in?
So Jason opened up the garage for us, and immediately the smell of decaying flesh just permeated from inside.
So it smells really bad in here.
You smell that, right? Yeah.
It's an odor familiar to any detective working a homicide, the smell of death.
We got to the rear of the vehicle and opened the hatch on the cargo area, and the smell was definitely the strongest in that particular area.
Forensics detectives spray Jason's truck with a luminol-based chemical used to detect even the smallest amount of blood. The result blows everyone away.
The interior of the cargo compartment illuminated very brightly.
So basically, his trunk was glowing with evidence of blood traces.
Yes.
And there's more beneath the truck, dripping from the undercarriage, a growing pool of dark liquid.
That fluid tested presumptively positive for blood.
Cops bust Jason on the drugs they find in his apartment, but it's Jessie they want to talk about during his interrogation.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
Okay. Did you wonder where she went?
Yeah, I wondered a lot of things.
The only thing Jason doesn't wonder about, where is Jessie?
I've already gone through all this, man. I don't want to keep answering the same questions. I really don't.
He was very guarded, very closed off. He became very agitated and very angry.
He knew you had the heat on.
Absolutely.
How about this? We did a search warrant at your apartment. We found a bunch of blood in the back of that car.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, it sounds kind of odd, don't you think?
I'm not going to be accused of something, man. This is it for me. I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah. Wrapping up. I'm done talking.
We knew Jason was responsible. We knew he had taken Jessie somewhere. We just wanted desperately to know where.
And with Jason tight-lipped, there's a huge problem.
Without finding Jessie's body, we don't really have a case.
I'm done talking.
Jessie Bardwell's boyfriend, Jason Lowe, is locked up, charged with Jessie's murder, even though cops haven't found her body. But evidence of foul play has left an incriminating odor of death in Jason's garage.
So it smells really bad in here.
You smell that, right?
Yeah.
Her father, Gary Bardwell, lives in a state of dread.
In my heart, she was gone.
And as prosecutors dig into Jason's history, they uncover terror.
What's your boyfriend's name?
Jason. His name is Jason Lowe.
That trembling voice on this 911 call is Chrisy Chambers. She tells Crime Watch Daily the same story she told police. Her relationship with Jason was a nightmare of intimidation and violence.
He looked at me in my eyes and he said he was killing me.
It's all led to one brutal night of abuse when Jason flips and Chrisy says he turns murderous.
He really started pushing me, shoving me. He had me down on my back with all of his weight on top of me. Something kind of snapped in my head and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to stop this man, and I just blacked out.
Thankfully, Chrisy regains her senses just in time.
You were fighting for your life.
It really was.
And makes this frantic 911 call from a nearby convenience store.
Like, he tried to kill me. He pulled me down on the ground until I was unconscious.
So police asked you to rate how strong the grip he had on you was, from 1 to 10. What was your answer?
11. This is not a joke. This is not someone's boyfriend beat out of his girlfriend. This is not this. He just tried to kill me.
Even though Chrisy dropped the charges, she still lives with the fear.
I thought deep, deep in my heart that if he would have ever found out that I went through with charges, that he would have gotten out and he would have come back after me. I think he meant to kill me, and he messed up.
Now detectives wonder, did Jason snap again on Jessie Bardwell and kill her?
I don't know what you're talking about. I told you everything I know.
Jason's not talking to cops, but he is starting to formulate a story.
How you doing? Everything okay?
As well as to be expected.
All right.
Lowe doesn't know he's being recorded in jail, but he's about to make a shocking confession. He's talking to his buddy, Tommy Jordan. Jason and Jessie were house sitting for Jordan that weekend Jessie went missing, and it's there that he claims something terrible went down.
I said nothing happened at my house, correct?
I can't make that promise. I know.
Jason tells Tommy Jessie's death was a terrible, tragic accident. Jason would later claim he and Jessie were having sex in the shower when Jessie slipped and hit her head. Then he says they went to bed that night, but Jessie never woke up.
Like, I made a mistake. Like, it was an accident, and, you know, that's what I'm going to share. And I know what I'm guilty of. I'm guilty of criminal negligence. I mean, this is like literally like a split second, like what, I mean, but you know, and like I said, I'm sorry, but I can't, there's nothing I could have done differently. I'm pretty confident in that.
Jason may think an accident is a solid defense, but his jailhouse admission gives the prosecutors all the evidence they need except for one thing, Jessie's body.
He places himself as being with Jessie at the time of her death.
With the jailhouse recording and Lowe's history of violence, the noose is tightening around Jason's neck, and he knows it. He could face life in prison, so Jason offers to cut a deal. He'll lead them to Jessie's body if they take a life sentence off the table.
Basically, he would show us where Jessie was. In exchange, they would limit his sentence to 50 years.
Prosecutors agree, and Lowe leads heavy-hearted investigators to a muddy field about 35 miles away in nearby Farmersville, Texas.
He told us it's about 250 yards down that fence line, and he was referring to Jessie when he said it.
It, not she?
No.
Not her body?
No emotion.
Not Jessie?
No.
At the edge of the tree line, beyond Jason's tire tracks still dug in the mud, police finally find Gary Bardwell's daughter, Jessie.
The chief came in. He said, Mr. Bardwell, Miss Bardwell, this is probably going to be the worst day of your life.
And she had been wrapped in a sheet, a bed sheet, and we were unable to see what she looked like at the scene. She was probably one of the worst cases I've ever seen as far as decomposition.
An autopsy shows Jessie's body is so decomposed it's impossible to determine exactly how she died. But authorities are certain of one thing: Jessie was murdered, and now her father is racked with guilt.
I don't know how much longer I can take this. If I would have just gone to Texas. I keep saying that over and over again. And people say, Gary, nothing would have changed. How do they know? I get pissed off when I see somebody happy. He took my world away.
At Jason's trial, it gets worse for Jessie's parents. They learn the terrible details of Jessie's final days and what her cold-hearted boyfriend Jason was doing in the hours after her death, trying to hook up with other women.
He was sending explicit photos of himself, nude photos of himself. Women were sending nude photos of themselves back to him. They were sexting, and all of this was happening while Jessie's body sat rotting in the back of Jason Lowe's Audi. I don't know how Gary was able to restrain himself from jumping over that bar and coming after Jason Lowe himself.
Maybe the most painful thing for Jessie's father, Gary Bardwell learns he was only a few feet away from his beautiful daughter when he went to Jason Lowe's apartment. Her body was still hidden in the back of Jason's car.
This was before he threw my daughter away like a piece of trash. She was in the car, in the garage, dead, when I was knocking on the door.
Jason once again offers his defense. It was an accident. Jason acting out the scenario in front of the jury.
Said they were in the shower, having sex. They lost their footing and fell, and Jessie hit her head. Him and his lawyer acting it out with chairs like, I said, this is so stupid.
Gary wants Jason Lowe to pay the ultimate price, but that won't happen. Remember, Jason Lowe cut a deal not to bring closure to Jessie's heartbroken family, but to save his own skin.
To make him look like a good person.
To make him look like a good person, to make him look like he was actually trying to help the police, that he wanted to bring some closure for Jessie's family, when in actuality it was just for Jason Lowe.
This time, it's the jury who shows no mercy. Jason Lowe is found guilty of Jessie Bardwell's murder. He's sentenced to the maximum allowed under the deal, 50 years in prison.
As far as I'm concerned, he's the devil. Jessie met pure evil.
Jessie Bardwell's family returns home to Mississippi that now seems so eerily quiet.
There's just a deafening silence in my life now.
Her father trying to remember the laughter and fill his daughter's bedroom with music with a song he wrote for Jessie.
There's a brand new break in my heart every day.
And Gary Bardwell says he's devoted the rest of his life to keeping Jessie's voice alive.
I'm doing this because I want people to keep Jessie's light shining. And if this show helps one girl get out of a situation that's toxic and dangerous, and it's done its job.
Lowe will be eligible for parole after serving half of that sentence, which started with his arrest in May 2016. At that time, he'll be 51 years old.